No, please, my flight. I scanned it. I have the confirmation.
Ma'am, you were marked as a no-show. The door is closed.
But I have the scan. Look, it's 5:18. Please.
Emily Carter had saved lives for 16 hours straight, but at gate 42, nobody believed she was telling the truth. The jet bridge door was still open. She could see the last few passengers stepping into the narrow hallway, rolling their bags behind them, while the aircraft lights glowed through the glass like the flight was waiting just for her. Emily pushed through the crowd with one hand on her hospital badge and the other gripping her phone. Her hoodie was zipped over wrinkled blue scrubs. Her shoes still had a faint smear of hospital floor wax on the soles. She smelled like antiseptic, coffee, and exhaustion. "Wait, please," she said, breathless. "I'm on this flight." The gate agent barely looked up. "Ma'am, boarding is closed." Emily froze. "No, that can't be right. I checked in. Emily Carter, seat 18A. A few passengers turned around. One man sighed loudly, the way people do when they think someone else's emergency is an inconvenience. A teenager lifted his phone, pretending to check a message while aiming the camera straight at her. The flight attendant at the jet bridge entrance folded her arms. "We called final boarding twice." "I was here," Emily said. "I was sitting right there." She pointed to a row of seats near the window, where her half-empty coffee cup still sat beside a crumpled napkin. The gate supervisor stepped forward from behind the counter. Tall, neat suit, silver-rimmed glasses, calm face. Too calm. His name tag read, Malcolm Reed. "Miss Carter," he said, loud enough for the people nearby to hear, "your seat was released after you failed to appear." Emily stared at him. "Failed to appear? I was the first one at this gate." A woman in line whispered, "There's always someone." Emily heard it. So did Malcolm. He gave a tight smile and tapped his screen. "The system says no show." Her phone buzzed in her hand. "Mom, surgery moved. Up. Please tell me you boarded." Emily's throat tightened. "My brother is waiting for me," she said. "I'm donating blood for his surgery. Please scan my pass." Malcolm didn't move. Behind him, the jet bridge door began to close. The jet bridge door clicked once as the attendant pulled it inward. Emily stepped toward it without thinking. "Please don't close that." Malcolm lifted one hand, not touching her, but blocking the path all the same. "Ma'am, you need to step back from the door." "I'm not trying to cause a scene," Emily said. Her voice stayed low, but it took everything in her not to break apart in front of them. She could feel strangers watching the way people watched weather from behind glass, interested only because it wasn't happening to them. The flight attendant looked at Malcolm. "Do you want airport security?" Emily blinked. "Security? For what?" "For refusing instructions," Malcolm said. "I'm asking you to check my boarding pass. You're arguing after boarding closed." Emily looked down at the pass glowing on her phone. Her thumb trembled near the barcode. There it was. Her name, her seat, the time, the little details that were supposed to mean something in places like this. "My brother's name is Daniel," she said, mostly to keep her voice steady. "He's 23. He was in a car accident yesterday morning. The blood bank found a shortage, and I'm his direct match." A few faces in the line changed. Not much, just enough to make the silence heavier. Malcolm sighed through his nose. "Miss Carter, I understand this feels important to you." Emily's eyes snapped up. "Feels?" The word landed between them. She had spent the last 16 hours holding pressure on wounds, calling families from hallways, cleaning blood from her own wrists because there hadn't been time to notice it drying. She had left the hospital with her charge nurse yelling, "Go, Emily, we've got the floor," and a rideshare driver praying under his breath at every red light. She did not say any of that. She only straightened her shoulders and held out her phone. "Please scan it." Malcolm looked at the screen for half a second, then turned away. "Seat 18A has already been reassigned." From the boarding lane, a young man in a tailored coat glanced down at a fresh boarding pass in his hand, then quickly looked away. The young man in the tailored coat folded the boarding pass in half, then slid it into his inside pocket, as if hiding a receipt from a bad purchase. Emily saw the movement. So did Malcolm. His jaw tightened for one brief second, Then his face returned to that polished airport calm. "Sir," Malcolm said to the young man, "you can proceed." The man hesitated. Is there a problem with the seat?" "No problem," Malcolm said. "Your upgrade was cleared." Emily's stomach dropped. "Upgrade?" The man gave her a quick, embarrassed glance and stepped toward the jet bridge. Emily moved one step after him. "Wait. That's my seat, isn't it?" Malcolm's voice sharpened. "Miss Carter, step out of the boarding lane. I bought that ticket 3 weeks ago." "And you missed boarding?" "I was sitting right there." "You keep saying that." "Because it's true." The teenager with the phone raised it higher now. Someone behind Emily muttered, "Just let them do their job." She turned, not angry, just stunned. "I'm trying to get to a hospital." Malcolm leaned toward the computer, clicked twice, and lowered his voice to the gate agent beside him. "Close her file." The younger agent, a woman with tired eyes and a loose scarf around her neck, paused with her fingers over the keyboard. "It's already marked." "Close it," Malcolm said. Emily caught those 2 words. "What are you closing?" Malcolm looked up. "Your missed boarding record." "I didn't miss boarding." The younger agent kept her eyes down. Her screen reflected in her glasses. Rows of names, times, status changes. Emily could not read them from where she stood, but she saw the agent's hand stop on the mouse. Malcolm reached over and clicked for her. A small chime came from the computer. He straightened. "There. The record is complete." Emily felt the room shift, not because anyone helped her, but because something had just been locked into place. Her phone buzzed again. "Mom, they're taking him back soon." Emily looked at Malcolm. "You just made it official." He adjusted his glasses. "No, Miss Carter," he said. "You did?" "No, Miss Carter," Malcolm said. "You did." Emily stared at him, waiting for the shame to come, but something colder arrived first. The feeling that she was standing in front of a locked door while the person holding the key blamed her for the lock. The young man with the reassigned seat disappeared into the jet bridge. The flight attendant reached for the door again. Emily stepped back, but only half a step. "What was his name?" Malcolm's eyes narrowed. "That is not your concern." "It became my concern when you gave him my seat." "Lower your voice." "My voice is lower than yours." A small ripple moved through the passengers, not laughter, not support, just the uncomfortable shifting of people realizing the scene was not ending neatly. The younger gate agent swallowed and glanced at the monitor again. Emily saw it this time. A line of text sat open on the screen for barely 2 seconds before Malcolm moved his shoulder in front of it. She couldn't read the whole thing, but she caught her last name. Carter. Beside it, a time on 5:18 p.m. Emily's flight had not started boarding until 5:35. Her eyes locked on the screen. "What is that?" Malcolm turned his body fully now, blocking the monitor. "You need to leave the boarding area." "That time," Emily said. "Why does it show 5:18? The younger agent's hand slipped from the mouse. Malcolm didn't look at her. "It doesn't. I saw my name." "You saw what you wanted to see." Emily gave a small, stunned laugh. It had no humor in it. "You're really saying that?" From behind the counter, the scanner beeped as the agent bumped it with her wrist. Its tiny display lit up for a moment, green numbers glowing under the scratched plastic. Last scan, 5:18 p.m. The younger agent quickly set her hand over it, but not quickly enough. An older man in the boarding line leaned forward. "Did that say last scan?" Malcolm snapped his head toward him. "Sir, please board." Emily's heart began to pound for a different reason now. Not fear, not yet relief. A thin, fragile piece of proof had just blinked in the open, and Malcolm had seen it too. A thin, fragile piece of proof had just blinked in the open, and Malcolm had seen it too. His calm finally cracked at the edges. "Everyone with a valid boarding pass, move forward," he said, forcing brightness into his voice. "We are closing the flight." No one moved at first. Emily looked from the covered scanner to the younger agent's face. "Please," she said to her, "not Malcolm now. You saw it." The agent's lips parted, then closed again. Malcolm turned slowly toward her. Jenna. One word. Her name. A warning dressed like a correction. Jenna lowered her eyes. Emily's phone rang. The sound cut through the gate noise so sharply that people looked down at their own phones. Emily saw her mother's name on the screen, and for 1 second she couldn't touch it. Not because she didn't want to answer, but because answering would make this real. She swiped. "Mom?" Her mother's voice came broken and breathless. "Emily, where are you?" Emily turned away from the counter, pressing a hand over her other ear. "I'm at the gate. They won't let me on." "What do you mean they won't let you on?" "They said I was late." "But you left early. You called me from there." Emily closed her eyes. Across the desk, Malcolm spoke louder to the remaining passengers. "The aircraft cannot wait, because one passenger failed to follow procedure." The words entered her call. Her mother heard them. "Emily," her mother whispered, "they're asking for consent forms. They're moving fast." "I'm coming," Emily said, though the sentence felt like glass in her mouth. "Baby, if you can't, I'm coming." But when Emily looked up, the jet bridge door had shut completely. The flight attendant turned the handle and stepped back. Something inside Emily loosened. Her shoulders sank. The fight drained out of her in one terrible wave, leaving only the hospital smell on her sleeves, and the Sioux, and of her mother crying quietly through the phone. She lowered herself onto the nearest seat. Malcolm watched her sit. Then, almost gently, he said, "That would be the appropriate place to wait. That would be the appropriate place to wait." Emily looked up at Malcolm from the hard airport chair. For a moment she seemed too tired to answer him. Then she said, "I hope you never have to beg a stranger to do the right thing." Malcolm's face stiffened, but before he could respond, a cleaning cart squeaked to a stop beside the row of seats. The man pushing it was short, broad-shouldered, with grey in his beard and a faded airport badge clipped to his vest. He had a trash bag tied to one side of the cart and a stack of paper towels on the other. His name patch said Luis. He didn't look at Malcolm first. He looked at Emily's coffee cup near the window. Then he looked at Emily. "You were sitting there," Luis said. Malcolm turned. "Excuse me?" Luis nodded toward the window seats. "Blue scrubs, grey hoodie, same badge. She asked me where the outlet was before boarding started." Emily sat very still, as if one sudden movement might scare the truth away. Jenna looked up from behind the counter. Malcolm gave a thin laugh. "Sir, this is an airline matter." Luis rested both hands on the cart handle. "I clean this gate every night. I know who's sleeping, who's running, who's lying about a carry-on being small." A passenger near the desk gave a nervous cough. Luis continued, calm and plain. "She was here." Malcolm stepped closer to him. "You need to keep moving." "I was going to," Luis said. "Then I heard you say no-show." The word felt different when he said it. Smaller, dirtier. Emily slowly stood. "You saw me before boarding?" Luis glanced at the wall clock. "Before they called families with small kids. You were on the phone, crying, but quiet about it." Emily pressed her lips together. Malcolm's voice dropped. "You don't have access to passenger status, so your opinion is irrelevant." Luis tilted his head. "No, but I have access to the service corps. Ride or log." Malcolm stopped. It was the first time he looked genuinely caught off guard. Luis reached into his vest pocket and pulled out a small black handheld device. "And Gate 42's scanner syncs with our maintenance timestamps when we reset the bins." Jenna whispered, "Luis?" He looked at her. "Pull the gate activity log. Pull the gate activity log." The words hung there, simple and dangerous. Jenna didn't move. Malcolm did. He stepped between her and the keyboard, his smile returning in a harder shape. "Nobody is pulling anything. We have a closed flight, a distressed passenger, and an employee from facilities interrupting operations. Luis looked at the shut jet bridge door. Then operations can spare 30 seconds. That's not your call. No, Luis said, but the timestamps are not yours to hide. A low murmur spread through the remaining passengers. The teenager lowered his phone slightly, as if the recording had stopped being entertainment and turned into evidence. Emily stood beside the chair, one hand still wrapped around her phone. Her mother was silent on the line now, listening. Emily didn't dare speak. Every word felt like it might break whatever thin wire Luis had just pulled tight. Jenna's fingers hovered near the keyboard. Malcolm turned his head just enough for only her to see his eyes. Do not. Jenna swallowed. Malcolm, the scanner did show. It showed nothing useful. It showed her last scan. It showed a device memory. Luis gave a short nod. Good. Then check the system memory. Malcolm's face reddened at the neck. You are overstepping. From behind them, a man in a pilot's uniform appeared at the top of the jet bridge door window, visible through the glass. He knocked once from the inside. The flight attendant opened it a crack. Captain, we're handling it. The captain looked past her toward the desk, then toward Emily. Why do I still have an open passenger dispute at my gate? Malcolm straightened instantly. Passenger arrived after boarding closure. Emily's mouth opened, but Louise spoke first. Captain, she may have scanned at 5:18. The captain's expression changed, not dramatically, but enough for everyone close by to notice. Boarding started at 5:35, he said. Jenna closed her eyes for half a second. Then she reached around Malcolm and tapped 3 keys. The monitor brightened. A list opened. At the top, under Gate 42 activity, was one name. Carter, Emily. Scan accepted, 5:18 p.m. Carter, Emily. Scan accepted, 5:18 p.m. For 3 seconds, no one spoke. The airport did not go quiet, not really. Wheels still clattered over tile. A child cried somewhere near the food court. The overhead speaker announced a flight change 2 gates down. But at Gate 42, the silence became its own sound. Emily stared at the screen as if the letters might vanish if she blinked. The captain stepped fully out from the jet bridge doorway. Why was this passenger marked no-show? Malcolm cleared his throat. Captain, that log may not reflect boarding eligibility. Jenna turned toward him slowly. It reflects a successful scan. Malcolm's eyes cut to her. It reflects a gate presence scan, not boarding. Emily looked at Jenna. Is that true? Jenna's face tightened. She didn't answer fast enough, and that said enough. Luis leaned on his cart handle. The scanner at that desk doesn't do greetings. A few passengers murmured. The older man who had noticed the display earlier took a step closer. Malcolm lifted his hand. Everyone needs to step back. This is an internal issue. The teenager with the phone spoke from behind Emily. It didn't look internal when you said she held up the line. Several heads turned toward him. Malcolm's polished calm was thinning by the second. Sir, I would advise you not to interfere. The captain looked at Jenna. Show me the status changes. Jenna hesitated. Malcolm said, That requires supervisor authorization. The captain's voice stayed level. Then authorize it. I don't believe that's necessary. No, Emily said softly. Everyone looked at her. She stepped closer to the counter, not past the line, not toward the door, just close enough to stop sounding like someone begging from the edge of the room. You said I failed to appear, she said to Malcolm. You said my seat was released because of me. If that's true, let them see it. Malcolm's mouth moved once without sound. The captain did not look away from him. Behind the counter, Jenna's hand returned to the keyboard. This time, Malcolm did not stop her. Jenna opened a second window on the monitor, and the screen asked for a supervisor code. For a moment, Malcolm just stood there, breathing through his nose. The captain waited. Luis waited. Emily waited with her phone still pressed against her palm. her mother silent on the other end, like she was afraid one sound might ruin everything. Malcolm leaned in and typed 6 numbers. Jenna hit enter. The status history loaded slowly, line by line, each one appearing like a footprint in fresh snow. Checked in, gate scan accepted, seat confirmed. Then, 13 minutes later, another entry appeared. Passenger status changed. No show. Emily's eyes moved to the time beside it, 5:31 p.m. Boarding had not even begun. The older man near the lane whispered, "That's before they called us." Malcolm turned sharply. "Sir." But it was too late. People were looking now, really looking. The captain stepped closer to the screen. "Who changed the status?" Jenna clicked the entry. A small box opened, authorized by M. Reed. The air left Emily's lungs, not all at once, slowly, like her body had been holding on to one last excuse for him, and finally let it go. Malcolm's face went pale around the mouth. "That's not what it looks like." Louise gave a tired little laugh. "It never is." The captain's voice hardened. "Explain it." Malcolm adjusted his glasses, but his fingers missed the frame the first time. There was confusion at the desk. We had a standby clearance, pressure from operations, a tight departure window. "You marked her absent before boarding started," the captain said. "I made a judgment call." Emily looked toward the jet bridge door. "You gave my seat away while I was sitting right there." Malcolm didn't answer her. That silence did more damage than any confession. Behind the counter, Jenna clicked once more, and another detail expanded beneath the status change. Seat 18A reassigned to priority standby passenger. The young man in the tailored coat was no longer visible, but the boarding pass in his pocket seemed to hang in the room anyway. Emily's mother finally spoke through the phone, barely above a whisper. "Emily, are they letting you on?" "Emily, are they letting you on?" Emily tried to answer, but the captain spoke first. "They are." Malcolm turned toward him. "Captain, the passenger currently in 18A has already boarded." "Then unboard him." The sentence landed clean and hard. The flight attendant at the jet bridge door shifted her weight. "Captain, we're already at departure count. And we're not departing with a seat taken from a ticketed passenger by a false entry." Malcolm's face tightened. "You don't have the full context." "I have the timestamp," the captain said. "That's enough context to start with." Emily's knees felt weak, but she stayed standing. Her mother was crying softly into the phone now, not loudly, not dramatically, just the broken sound of someone who had been bracing for the worst and didn't trust the floor yet. "Mom," Emily whispered, "stay with Daniel. Tell them I'm coming." "Don't hang up," her mother said. "I won't." The captain looked at Jenna. "Print the activity record and contact the duty manager, now." Jenna nodded quickly, almost grateful to be given an honest instruction. Malcolm stepped closer to the counter. "Jenna, wait." She didn't. The small printer beneath the desk woke with a mechanical buzz. A strip of paper slid out, covered in black lines and exact times that no one could soften with a smile. Luis watched it print, one hand on his cart, his face unreadable. The captain turned to the flight attendant. "Bring me the passenger in 18A. Through the open crack of the jet bridge door, a low wave of cabin noise spilled into the gate area, seatbelts clicking, bins closing, travelers settling in, unaware that one of them was sitting in a place that had never belonged to him. The flight attendant disappeared down the jet bridge. Malcolm looked at Emily then, really looked at her, and for the first time there was no script left in his eyes. "You don't understand what kind of people were involved," he said under his breath. Emily held his gaze. "No," she said. "You didn't understand who was waiting for me." "No," she said. "You didn't understand who was waiting for me." Malcolm looked away first. The jet bridge door opened wider, and the flight attendant returned with the young man in the tailored coat behind her. He stepped into the gate area, blinking fast, carrying his laptop bag in one hand and his phone in the other. A voice snapped from his speaker before he could mute it. "Do not get off that aircraft. Tell them Mr. Voss's office cleared this." The young man jabbed the screen and ended the call. The name meant nothing to most of the passengers, but it meant something to Malcolm. His shoulders rose a fraction, like a man bracing before a blow. The captain noticed. "Who is Mr. Voss?" Malcolm said nothing. The young man shifted his bag strap. "I'm just an assistant. My boss was supposed to be on this flight, then plans changed. I was told a seat opened." Emily watched him carefully. He looked uncomfortable, not cruel. Sweat shone at his temple. "Were you on standby?" the captain asked. "Yes, sir." "Were you told whose seat it was?" "No." He looked at Emily then, and the embarrassment finally settled fully on his face. "I'm sorry. I didn't know." Malcolm cut in. "He is not required to answer questions from other passengers." "He's answering mine," the captain said. Jenna tore the printed activity record from the machine and held it out. The captain took it, read it once, then handed it to the flight attendant. "Make a copy for the duty manager." Malcolm reached for it. "That document is internal." The flight attendant pulled it back before his fingers touched it. For a second, everybody saw the grab. The teenager's phone was up again. So were two others now. Malcolm lowered his hand slowly. "This is being handled improperly." Louise leaned closer to Emily and murmured, "Improper is when the trash goes in recycling. This is bigger." Emily almost smiled, but her phone vibrated again against her palm. Her mother's voice came through, urgent and thin. "They're asking where you are. The surgeon is here." Emily looked at the captain. He didn't hesitate. "Board, Miss Carter." "Board, Miss Carter." For 1 second, Emily didn't move. The sentence had come so cleanly, so directly, that her body seemed late to believe it. Then Jenna stepped around the counter with the scanner in her hand. "Your pass," she said softly. Emily lifted her phone. This time, no one blocked the screen. No one turned the monitor away. The scanner caught the barcode with a bright beep that sounded almost too small for what it meant. Accepted. Jenna's eyes flickered with shame. "I'm sorry." Emily wanted to say something sharp, something deserved, but her mother was still on the phone, breathing like she was standing at the edge of a cliff, and Daniel was somewhere under white lights, waiting for blood that only she could give. So Emily only nodded once and moved toward the jet bridge. Louis pulled his cart back to clear the path. "Go," he said. The older man near the lane stepped aside. The teenager lowered his phone as Emily passed, his face flushed now. "I didn't know," he mumbled. Emily looked at him, not stopping. "Most people don't." Inside the jet bridge, the air changed. It was warmer, tighter, filled with the metal smell of the aircraft and the faint hum of engines waiting. Each step sounded hollow beneath her shoes. Behind her, voices rose at the gate. "Duty manager's coming," Jenna said. Malcolm answered too low for Emily to catch. Then the captain's voice cut through. "Keep that record visible." Emily gripped her phone harder and spoke into it as she walked. "Mom, I'm getting on." Her mother made a sound that was almost a sob, almost a prayer. At the aircraft door, the flight attendant stood straighter than before. The earlier certainty had left her face. "Miss Carter," she said, quieter now. "Right this way." Emily stepped into the cabin. Rows of passengers turned toward her. The young assistant stood in the aisle near 18A, holding his bag against his chest. Without being asked, he moved out of the row. "I'm sorry," he said again. Emily slipped past him, toward the window seat that had been taken from her on a screen before she ever left it. Emily slipped past him, toward the window seat that had been taken from her on a screen before she ever left it. Her fingers brushed the seat back as she slid into 18A. The cushion was still warm from someone else. A half-folded safety card stuck out of the pocket in front of her, bent at the corner. Outside the oval window, the wing lights blinked against the evening haze. She sat down slowly, like any sudden movement might make the whole thing reverse. Across the aisle, a woman who had watched from the gate lowered her eyes. The older man who had spoken up gave Emily a small nod from 2 rows ahead. No applause came, no dramatic moment, just a cabin full of people realizing they had almost helped a lie by staying comfortable. The flight attendant leaned in. "Can I get your bag up?" Emily had forgotten she was still clutching it. "I've got it," the young assistant said. He lifted her backpack gently into the overhead bin, careful with it, as though kindness now required both hands. Emily pressed the phone back to her ear. "Mum, I'm in my seat." Her mother exhaled, shaky and wet. I'm telling them right now." Before Emily could answer, the aircraft doorway filled with movement. Malcolm stood at the threshold. Behind him was a woman in a black blazer with an airport ID clipped to her lapel. Her face was composed, but her eyes were already angry. Jenna stood farther back, holding papers against her chest. The captain stepped between Malcolm and the cabin. "Miss Carter is seated," he said. The woman in the blazer looked past him into the aisle. "Are you Emily Carter?" Emily gripped the armrest. "Yes." "I'm Dana Ellis, duty manager. I need to verify one thing before this aircraft moves." Malcolm's voice came tight behind her. "Dana, this is unnecessary." Dana didn't look at him. She held up the printed activity record. "Did you scan our boarding pass at this gate at 5:18 p.m.? Emily looked at the paper, then at Malcolm. "Yes," she said. "And he told everyone I was late." "Yes," Emily said. "And he told everyone I was late." Dana Ellis turned her head just enough to look at Malcolm. For a moment he seemed smaller standing at the aircraft door, trapped between the cabin and the gate, between the paper in Dana's hand and the passengers who had heard every word. "That is a serious accusation," he said. Emily's voice stayed steady. "It's also what happened." Dana stepped into the aisle. "Miss Carter, did anyone at the desk ask you to verify your boarding pass before your seat was released?" "No." "Did anyone tell you the system showed you had scanned in?" "No." "Did anyone offer to review the timestamp when you questioned it?" Emily glanced toward Jenna, who stood just beyond the doorway, with her eyes wet and fixed on the floor. "No," Emily said. Malcolm's face hardened. She became emotional and disruptive. "I made the safest operational decision available." The older man, 2 rows ahead, turned in his seat. "She asked you to scan her phone." A woman across the aisle added quietly, "She wasn't yelling." The teenager raised his hand a little, still holding his phone. "I recorded the whole thing." Malcolm looked at him, then at Dana. "Passengers are not witnesses to procedure." Dana unfolded the paper. The procedure signed itself. She held the log up, not high enough for the whole cabin to read, but high enough for Malcolm to understand what she meant. Status changed to no-show at 5:31. Boarding began at 5:35. Seat reassigned to priority standby at 5:33. Supervisor authorization, M. Reed. The young assistant swallowed from the front galley. "My boss's office called the desk before I boarded." Dana's eyes moved to him. "Who did they speak with?" The assistant looked at Malcolm. No one needed him to say the name. Malcolm's mouth opened, but the captain cut in. "Dana, I'm delaying departure until this passenger's connection to medical transport is confirmed on arrival." Emily looked up sharply. "You can do that?" The captain met her eyes. "I can make sure the truth doesn't lose any more time. I can make sure the truth doesn't lose any more time." The captain turned back toward the doorway. "Dana, I need ground medical notified at arrival. Priority D-plane for Miss Carter." Dana nodded once. "Already calling?" Then she looked at Malcolm. "Step away from the aircraft door." Malcolm's eyes flicked across the cabin. The phones, the faces, the printed record in Dana's hand. "Dana," he said quietly, "don't do this here." Dana's voice did not rise. "You did it here?" That was the moment the cabin understood. Not guessed, not suspected. Understood. Jenna stepped forward, holding the second copy of the log. "I'll give my statement." Malcolm turned toward her, stunned. She didn't shrink this time. "I should have spoken sooner," she said. "I won't stay quiet twice." Dana signaled to 2 airport officers waiting just beyond the jet bridge. They didn't make a scene. They simply moved beside Malcolm and guided him away from the doorway, while the same passengers who had watched Emily be humiliated now watched the lie walk out in a suit. The flight attendant closed the aircraft door gently. Emily sat by the window, phone pressed to her ear, unable to speak as the plane finally pushed back. Hours later, when the aircraft door opened in the next city, no one blocked her path. The captain stood at the front and said, "Let her through first." This time, every aisle cleared. Emily ran down the jet bridge into the terminal toward two waiting airport staff with a wheelchair they never had to use because she wouldn't sit. One of them jogged beside her, carrying her bag, while her mother's directions came through the phone in broken pieces. At the hospital, the elevator doors opened to a white hallway, and her mother waiting with both hands over her mouth. Emily didn't stop until she reached Daniel's room. He lay pale against the pillow, tubes taped to his arm, eyes half open beneath the harsh hospital light. Emily stepped close and took his hand. Daniel's fingers moved weakly around hers. His mouth trembled. "You came," he whispered. Emily bent over him, tears finally falling. And behind her, on a printed airport log already copied, filed, and impossible to erase, the truth remained exactly where it had always been. She wasn't late. She was first.